Hey, so from the beginning of the HJ free webinar series, we had this lovely lady join us. I want to say, what, 150 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Becky's been a friend. Becky's been a friend of ours for a long time and is a professional fundraiser. And just so happy to have her on. My name is Trevor Nelson, Jason Ledlow, HJ Fundraiser, the HJ free webinar series. Thanks everybody for coming in. I see some new names. I see some friendly names that I've seen before and what have you. And we're going to talk about the silent auction, and
Yeah.
we're going to pepper Becky with some questions. We want to get some questions from attendees. If you're watching this as a recording on YouTube later, go ahead and submit a question in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe before you leave the channel. And yeah, we got a Q&A function for everyone here viewing live, chat feature on the side. And yeah, here we'll get going. And we were just kind of goofing around, me and the marketing team, about this silent auction topic that we're on for a couple of weeks. And it's like, we just want to make the silent auction cool again, because we hear a lot of, oh, I'm not going to do a silent auction. Oh, it was underperforming. Oh, this and oh, that. And we really just kind of think it could be a simple fix, frankly. I'm using that term loosely because you're all the one, everyone out there who wants
It's
to have
easy
to
for
do
us
it.
to say
Yeah,
simple. It's
yeah,
That's why we have Becky here to keep us straight about it.
yeah,
You know,
absolutely. And
I
and
think
so
to your point, Trevor, I think that, the silent auction is it's something that's kind of a staple in fundraising, has been for as long as
mhm,
I've been doing it, and always been something, but it's changed.
yep.
There's been some significant changes, especially over the last 3 or 4 years. And the people that we're seeing that are really starting to make some changes, adopt some new strategies, do things, are turning it into a real fundraiser where it's raising some serious money. And but everybody else that's not kind of doing it the same old way, doing the same old thing, um, it has lost its luster. It's not so cool, and it's not near as fun to do because it's just really a lot of work. And
Mhm.
so, um, Becky, why don't you just take real like 2 minutes, Becky
Tell us
Felak,
about the
and
Good Times
what
Project,
we're gonna
please.
we're gonna let her tell the Becky backpack story because we've known her that way forever. But why don't you tell us a little about your organization, what you've been doing, how long you've been in the fundraising?
Yeah, yeah. Thanks so much for inviting me to join in with you guys. I totally have imposter syndrome that I just feel like I'm faking it till I make it. And, so it's always validating to have folks appreciate and acknowledge that maybe I slightly know what I'm doing. So I do appreciate that. But yeah, like they said, I work for the Good Times Project. We are a super small nonprofit out in Seattle, Washington. We have five total employees, three of who are part time. And I am the sole development person. We do have an assistant that does like admin and development help. So I'm not totally going it alone. But we run camps and programs for families who have a child with cancer. So we're really centered around creating moments of hope, love, and joy are kind of our three tenant words for that population. And it's just a treat to be able to give back. I came up through the organization as a camper myself. My sister had cancer, so it really is a total dream job to be able to, influence future families' experiences.
So cool. So
Good,
cool.
good. Yeah,
Yeah,
well, thanks for
how many
sharing that.
people get to say that? That's
Mhm.
so good.
Okay, so go ahead
That's
and tell us the backpack story real quick, and that way everybody
Yeah,
knows.
yeah. So we, as a camp organization, our flagship program is a summer camp, and it has just been a tradition that we adopted when we started in 1984 that we have camp names. So I came up as a volunteer first through the program. So when I was on staff, we all had to choose camp names, and some kids in middle school started calling me Beck Beck, that then transitioned to Backpack, and so I kind of already had that nickname when I was,
Uh-huh.
a young volunteer. Like I don't go backpacking. I don't wear a backpack normally. It's
I
just, a random nickname from my childhood.
love
That's
it.
awesome.
I
That's
love it.
awesome.
That's awesome. Thanks so
That's
much for
great.
sharing, Becky. That's awesome. Well, and so you're all going to notice a trend here. Becky's going to be very, very modest, and she has imposter syndrome, and I understand that too myself. But albeit,
Whatever. Okay, golly. Now I'm getting embarrassed. No, I'm kidding.
no, I'm saying, but what's amazing is that you're a fundraising juggernaut, and you have been learning on the fly, and you have a tremendous amount of success now and reps, and you produce big events that raise big dollars. We're talking $750,000 events. And, part of the success, you do an amazing job, obviously, with donors. The donors have such a huge connection to the mission, and you've got some very, very generous folks that come to your events and whatnot. However, you run a very custom, very, very particular event with items, and the way that, I've heard some, you've mentioned like, one of our live auction items, the best-selling one is actually not even an item at all, or what have you, you know what I mean? That kind of stuff. So, but talk to us a little bit about what you've seen over the last few years, maybe, and then we'll go more myopic into what it looks like now. And what I mean is, just the expectation that donors have for the obviously for the silent auction, for items. We want more experience, we want more of this.
Yeah, give us an idea where you started and where you are now, kind of what you've
Yeah.
seen the evolution.
Yeah, so just for context, we typically run 2 events that have auctions in our calendar year. So we have a big, like, traditional gala that does the silent auction, live auction, all that kind of stuff. And then we run another smaller event that it's race sports car enthusiasts bring their cars to a track and like drive around the track and give rides to our campers, and then there's an auction associated with it, so it's a much smaller scale. But certainly across both, I'd say the biggest thing is that people are just looking for reasons to give, right? They're not coming to your event to not spend money, and so creating really honing in on who that audience is and what they're going to be interested in. So when we're procuring items for our auctions, our goal, our target of the types of things that we get for our drive-a-thon, that's drivers and their wives, is going to be totally different target than our gala attendees who we know like wine and travel. So understanding, kind of like what you just said, Jason, understanding the people who you're attracting to your event and what they are going to be interested in. Like why would we waste our time spending, all this energy to procure a wax package, get like your car ceramic or whatever for our gala, when they're not going to buy that because that's not the audience.
Yeah.
That's not the mark. That's not hitting the mark. Yeah, totally.
Exactly. Yeah.
Do you guys do any surveys or anything specific
I was
that
going to
you've
ask the
done?
same question. Yep.
That you guys have
So
had?
I'm not in a super official sense, or yeah, official sense. But we do, and we just started doing this, reaching out for our gala attendees, all of our table hosts and folks who participated in the live auction, reaching out right around now to say, hey, what do you wish you had won last year? Or what have you seen at another event that you or your table host would be excited to bid on? And those conversations do typically more revolve around the live auction, but certainly silent auction packages come out of those conversations. And then it's like you have that leverage of, hey, Mark, you said you were interested in this, and then we can provide that information to our auctioneer to kind of have that extra push on encouraging high bidding.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then you're doing this 5-6 months in advance of the event.
Correct. Yeah. So we just started our procurement outreach at the end of the month last month for our event that's at the end of April. So it's about 5.5, 6 months in advance that we start doing all of that outreach.
Awesome.
Just give us an idea of how many items that you try to have in your silent auction, since that's really what we're talking about.
So
it's
shifted since COVID, and we have transitioned from only doing, the in-person silent auction to doing an online silent auction. We also pre-COVID were looking at so our event, we have pre-COVID, there were like about 300 people in the room, 280 to 300, and we would have 150 probably silent auction packages, so like way too many. And now that we do an online portion, we run an online silent auction that's open to anybody that typically has between like 60 to 80 packages. And then we do an in-person, we call it super silent auction, that is maxed at about 20 packages. So what we've seen there is pre-COVID, the kind of average percent of value that packages were selling for in the silent auction was around 70%. Now that we have transitioned to splitting it of the online that's open to everyone as well as the limited in person. Our online silent auction is averaging in the 80% plus percent of value for that, audience that's expanded past attendees. And then the in-person silent auction is averaging 100% of value, which is really high for a silent auction
Oh,
to
Well,
go for.
I've got a comment I want to make, and I want to just get your thoughts on that. So, one of the things you said is, we've gone from 70 to 80%. Do you think that has to do with just the fact that people are going to give more money? Obviously, that you got a great mission, but do you think also with maybe the kinds of things that you're putting in there and the way that you're packaging, and not just in the presentation, but just those things?
Yeah, I think it's a couple of things. One, I think it's limiting the market, right? If your
Mm-hmm.
market is too saturated, then it's not going to do well. So, I mean, even just last year with all of this learnings, we made a whoops and had like 7 packages that were like youth children's books. And like they all only sold for 50 to 60% of value, if that,
Yeah.
because there were so many where
Yeah.
and I think a reason we did that was because the year before we had like 2 packages and they both sold for a lot. So we were like, oh, our audience is interested in that. Let's give them what they want.
yeah.
But not oversaturating and really evaluating how many of each category and each type of package, each price point you have within your offering to drive that competition up, to both be interesting to a wide range of bidders, but also create the competition, so that people are bidding against each other instead of just
Mhm.
getting 2 packages that are essentially the same at a lower value.
Cool.
Do you
Does
think?
that answer your question?
Yeah, no, it absolutely
It's
does.
also
It,
good.
it
It's also
absolutely.
good. Yeah.
So, what's changed in procurement as far as going out and procuring these items, getting the donations? What have you all done that's different?
I think a lot of evaluation of the past year's successes. So learning what our attendees do not bid on fitness packages. They could care less about a Pilates, they could care less about a yoga,
Yeah.
core power, whatever, all this kind of stuff is not them. So we've nixed essentially all of that outreach, because I want our volunteer procurement committee to feel like their time is being spent in the most productive way,
Hmm.
and that they're contributing in a meaningful manner.
It takes
So
a
really
long.
looking and evaluating, like we have a whole spreadsheet that we, analyze at the end of each year, looking at how did the different categories do? Were there too many types in one category? How did the different values of packages do? Like, are all the packages valued at $50 selling for $100? Then like that's awesome. Or our high value packages not selling well? To do some very specific evaluation of the types of things our audience is doing, and then transitioning that into like, okay, yes, we love boating, so let's put together this, you know, um, very curated boating experience, versus just that kind of casting a wide net and seeing what you get. Just more intentional outreach, I think, is where I'm
Love
getting
that.
at.
So
Oh no,
smart.
that's really good. So that coincides with what we're seeing.
Yeah.
In my typically when I'm, we're coaching with somebody or we're talking to somebody, it's, we've said this in the past. If you can get a whole pile of crap, nobody wants crap. You can get a whole pile of crap at your front door tomorrow. Just get on Amazon. They'll bring it right over there and stack it right on your front doorstep.
Yep.
Right.
So that doesn't really do anything. It doesn't. It's kind of, and you mentioned fitness packages. I always my thought is the dental cleaning.
Yeah.
You know, I I realize that Dr. Smith may be a great person and really wants to do something, but nobody wants to go buy something to go to the dentist. They just don't. Whether they need to or not, it's just not what they're looking for, because we can all go get it for free anyway.
Listen to
For the
elevator
first
music on purpose.
introductory deal and all that. So I think you're spot on in doing that. My question would be, to follow up on that, what are you seeing? And let's use overall dollars, okay? Because obviously you're raising a lot of money. You're not doing near the stuff. You're getting 100%, 80%. You're seeing those things happen. What about the dollar amounts? Because in the past, and I think everybody would agree, it's always been kind of that, 10 to maybe $100 items, and that's the way we thought, because it was all stuff. Here's a bottle of wine, and maybe it could be a little bit more than that, but here's a bottle of wine, and here's some wine glasses, and here's a wine stopper, and here's a decant, and they're all different items. But what are you guys seeing as far as taking these things and the overall value?
Yeah, so we sorry, excuse me. We do kind of split up a bit of the value into putting some of those higher valued silent auction packages into the super silent in-person auction
Mhm.
versus on the online. Our highest value, I just flipped over to be able to tell you accurate numbers. Our highest value online silent auction packages were $1,000, and I mean, one sold for 500 and one sold for 1,500. So it's
Yeah.
like just
Yeah.
it's a
Mhm.
bit of a mixed bag. About half of our packages are at $100 or lower,
Mhm.
and and they're really kind of selling at a similar rate to the packages that are higher. So I think it's mostly about knowing your audience and what their giving capabilities are and creating that spread. So we know that our in the room audience has a higher giving threshold than our online audience. So we're going to put those higher value packages in front of the in person attendees. Whereas, like, some of our volunteers, some of our camper parents are wanting to contribute and bid in the online auction who maybe don't have as big of checkbooks. So let's create
Mhm.
those opportunities at a lower level to give.
Having different price points available for
Yeah.
folks is massive.
Yeah.
We're
Well, speak.
noticing, Jay, you're probably going to say this, Jay, but it's like we're noticing the higher value items sell at a rate that we've never even seen before in silent auctions.
Mhm.
Assuming that you're seeing that in your super silent. We also, I love it. It sounds very simple, but I love the idea of branding it as a super silent and making it exclusive. I don't think you can ever go wrong when you're branding an offering like that or a table like
Mhm.
that, or you can get it underwritten. We call it a vacation station a lot of times, stuff like that. But you've noticed that, I'm assuming, with the data, that higher value items are selling in the silent auction more than ever before is what we see. And if you're not seeing that, it's okay to say no too.
Yeah, yeah, I'd say it's a bit of a mix, kind of depending on what the item is.
Mhm.
I will
Right.
say more people are doing the buy now or instant win that you guys like to say to just secure that win early
Yep.
on, particularly. So since our in-person silent auction is so small now, we have gone back to paper bidding, which it maybe is controversial for such a small amount of items. So I think that then might be encouraging people to do the buy now option because they're gonna have to be there to win it, when that
Yeah.
closes. And it seems insane that we ever did that. I mean, I know we didn't have the technology, but when you had 150, 200 packages, how could people be in so many places at once to win what they want to
Oh,
win?
yeah,
But
you couldn't do
with
it.
20,
Well,
it feels more appropriate.
Dude. Yeah. Totally.
I want to say something about that.
Smarter, not
I
harder. I
think
think it's awesome.
there's a lot to be said about that, and I want to explain the instant win to everybody if you're listening. So what we recommend is this is not a what it's worth. It's not a value. This is just a number, and make it high.
Yeah.
You call it buy it now. We like to say instant win because it just sounds something different, but make it really high. So let's just say that it's an item that ought to be worth $1,000. Make it instant, and your starting bid's 100. Make the instant win 2,000. Make it a crazy number
Yeah.
because
You
at
create a
that
ceiling,
point,
really cool ceiling for
you're
the
just
market. Yeah.
people are gonna. We're seeing people take that option, like you said, because they're like, I don't care. I want it. This is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to do it now. I was talking to a director for a national group we work with, and he said, literally had somebody come over and said, "Am I going to buy it for that number?" And it was worth 3 times. It was 3x of what the actual value was.
Yeah.
He said, "If I do this, you're not going to sell another one. No, sir. We don't have another one to sell. This is it. I'm going to get it. Yes, sir." Walked over and signed his name up right then because he wanted it. Had nothing to do with what it was worth. He was there to give. He wanted to give it away. And I think on that point, we've seen, and I've never seen this ever in being around this for a long time. We're seeing things in the silent auction sell for more than what live auction items are selling for.
Wow. Yeah.
We had an event where the most expensive item was, I think it was $16,000 in the silent auction. In the live auction, the most expensive thing was $4,900, and that was a dog.
Yeah. Wow.
Blew my mind. I was just going, wow. and
Giving
everybody
people
did.
what they
We were
want. The
all
appetite's
surprised.
there, and making sure you know your audience. Like Becky keeps saying, we can't speak to that enough.
Mhm.
Knowing, and the data's there. Use the data,
Yeah.
outreach, having a conversation. It gives you another reason to get in front of your supporters as well. All of these things are great. How do you feel? So you're using technology. I'm shifting if you don't mind. You're using technology, obviously. I love the idea of being an equal opportunity receiver with, hey, you can't make it, great, buy some of these items, make a straight donation, all the above. Um, and I think that's fantastic. Uh, and but pulling that data post event and using it, for the next event, obviously, and to have that conversation with supporters. What kind of like database are you appealing to with the online auction? Like how many folks are actually seeing this, Becky, just give folks perspective?
Yeah, yeah. Before I answer that, just quick back to the idea of instant wins. So we set our instant wins at 200% of value. But we do a champagne auction where folks can buy a bottle of champagne to be served at their table when they sit down.
Mhm.
And we had every single bottle sell for that 200% of value. So we're like, let's bump it up to 300% of value. So it's like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
learn from what your
multiple
audience is
Barrett.
doing, and if you can, and then it's like the next year, I think 8 out of the 12 or something sold for that 300% of value. But the learning, like you're saying, learning from the data and
Mhm.
adjusting appropriately is
A lot
super
of times
important.
value only comes into it if you make it about value. If when you're fundraising, if you make it about value, that's
Mhm.
what the conversation is going to be. If you say this is worth $100, but you can buy it now for 500, nobody's going to do that.
Mhm.
But
Hmm.
if you just leave that off, nobody cares. Everybody walks around with an instant lookup item. If they really want to look, they can look it up on their phone. So, you brought up champagne, and the reason I know that's true because I went to an event a few years back. They were giving shots of
Fireball.
Fireball. I kid you not, shots of Fireball. It was $300. They were 8 tops. So for 8 shots of Fireball, which is about $2,
Yeah, it's
okay, they
250.
were selling this for $300. It was 250, $300,
I'm
and
joking.
I think every table was buying it.
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
the craziest thing in the world, and this was very formal,
yeah.
very, I mean, it was very, very formal and big gala, big money, and they were just having fun with it. So value and cost and stuff, don't I think that's a really thing that's
Relevant.
different now. We recommend doing this on every item, donated, consignment, whatever you're doing. Put your starting bid where you want it to be, where you're going to make money. Don't start it low. Go ahead and put it up there, but put an instant win and make it a crazy number. If you, like you said, 200%,
Yeah,
that's great, because you got to have some uniformity to it, just so because everybody's going, what do we want to do on this one? I don't know.
yeah.
You got to make a decision, make one decision and follow through. Becky, what about as far as the acquisition with items and going and doing those things for people knowing? Because a lot of times in the past, when we would go out and start procuring, people would say, well, I'm going to do this, but I want to make sure it's in the live auction.
Mm.
I don't think that's
Difficult
as a
conversations.
concern as much anymore,
Yeah.
but give us some real world experience with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only situation similar to that I've seen is some under communication, I think, on our part of where we're going to place a certain item. So our online auction opens a week before our event, and to speak to
Hmm.
Trevor's question, we have around 250 to 300 bidders in our online auction, which
Mhm.
are not the same people as our 250 in the room attendees. I'd say there's definitely some crossover, but I, I'd say total. I mean, I haven't like compared the names, but I'm
Yeah.
gonna guess we're in front of around 400 people,
Awesome.
maybe 350 to compared to just the 250 that are in the room.
Great.
But when our online auction has opened up in the past, I've gotten reached out to by a bidder saying, "Hey, did you decide not to use my item? Like, I don't see it in the on the silent auction." I'm like, "Oh my
Yeah.
God, yes, yes, we are using it. We
But
like it so much, in fact, that we're
it's in
using it
the
our
super style.
exclusive
Yeah.
in-person,
Yeah.
version."
Yeah.
So just some communication, I think, and transparency is important, and a lesson learned from that experience of if you have something special in mind, that particularly if you're doing an online auction, that donor isn't going to see the item in the online for whatever reason, if
Hmm.
it's moving to an in-person silent, if it's moving to live, just being open and transparent about that.
Yeah.
But I've not received any major pushback or issues of you have to utilize my
Basically,
donation in X, Y, or Z manner.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I just don't think it's that big of a deal anymore. But I know there for, like one of our team, he was working with somebody, and somebody was doing like a lawn kit. It was like a weed eater, a lawnmower, blower, that kind of stuff. And they wanted to do it in the live auction. And, he had called me, and goes, "What do you think?" And I said, "Well, I think that most of the people that are going to do this either already have a lawnmower
or
or
something.
they have their yard mowed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
don't think it's going to be that it's, you're telling me what your crowd is. This isn't the crowd that are, golly, I sure hope they have a weed eater and a lawnmower, you
yeah.
know,
It's
because
rough.
I really need to do that.
Well,
I just don't think that's, and so they were able to they put it in the silent auction. It did very well because
mhm,
they did the online exactly like you're talking about. And the donor was real happy. The person that bought it was happy. Everybody, it was a win-win all the way around. That's why
I
I
think
asked
that
that
speaks
question.
too to think you've said before what people should be giving to give, not giving to get. And not to sound ungrateful, but if someone is donating something to get recognition, like maybe that's not the best partnership opportunity. And can we direct them to a sponsorship that comes with signage and recognition and
Hmm.
all that kind of stuff? Or can we say, thank you so much for your interest, but this isn't the right event for you? Because we don't want to be dictated to.
good for you.
That might come from a place of privilege that I've not ever told someone no, but I feel like I could if it was turning into a toxic or unbeneficial donation based on their requirements or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. You just brought up something that's a really good point, and I think this is something that probably everybody that's ever been in the fundraising world, ever went to donations, has donors. They'll have that donor who has something that they donate. They want to donate it every year. The organization that I was on the board of had a gentleman, wonderful man. He had a timeshare in Florida that he donated wanted to do it every year, and he always wanted it in the live auction. And I mean, it did okay. It was an okay thing, but after a while, after about 4 years, everybody had bought it that wanted to go. There was
I get
nobody
some
else really
fatigue.
wanted to do it.
Yeah, donor fatigue. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we got him to transition it over to the silent auction. And the funny thing was, he was like, "I can't believe it. It brought more money in the silent auction than in the live auction." I said, "Because some people had time." I was thinking, well, people had time to think about it and look at it, and that may not be, they might not want to do it in the live auction just because they get scared or something. I mean, there's all kinds of, who knows.
Hmm.
But I think, having that honest conversation to say, like you said, "I appreciate the offer. We thank you. We're going to do something different this year."
Yeah.
Maybe there's a different something, that somebody else that you can go share that with or do something. But
Hmm.
I think it's okay to say no. It's kind of like, you know, the dentist that's on your board. "Well, I'm going to put this out here, "Oh, well, we don't really want it.
Yeah.
And it's just not appropriate anymore. Now,
Yeah.
if you want to do maybe there's something else that you could do. Because I know, dentists are
Yeah.
into doing like Botox and stuff like that. Hey, we're going to put a Botox because,
Give folks options.
I've seen those actually do really well.
Yeah. You mentioned about you actually have, volunteers and your staff procuring these items, and there's a lot of people hours that goes into this. I'm a
Hmm.
big believer in addition by subtraction sometimes. And I think that, are you noticing a trend over the last few years where you're not spending so much time running around town to grab this bottle of wine to put it in this basket because it's only going to bring us 25 bucks, that kind of thing. Are you notice that you're eliminating some of those opportunities that you had before, just not using them in place of something of higher value or higher demand or all the above? Are you noticing that?
I'm not sure. I mean, I think I kind of mentioned already, kind of getting back to the point of wanting our volunteers' time to be as productive as possible.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
pointing them already in those directions that are going to be the most beneficial, and limiting to say like, Yeah, we really only need one package that's targeted at pets. So once you get that, stop reaching out to the pet
Perfect.
stores.
That's just communication. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, to have that very purposeful direction. And I would also say, I mean, our procurement committee, amazing people, but do they necessarily have to be the people that go pick up the items? Maybe not. Is there
Yeah.
another volunteer that's constantly saying, like, let me know how I can help? Let me know.
There
Yeah,
you
can
go.
you go drive around the city for 2 hours and pick things up?
Yeah.
Doesn't you don't have to lean on just the one core group of people, I
Right.
think.
Right. I love that. I love that. Um, we constantly are hearing people say things, well, you don't need a live auction anymore. You don't need a silent auction anymore. And this is another really great opportunity to mention that there are people that only can afford maybe the ticket and $100 price point item. Awesome. Yeah, you got to have stuff for them to get involved. Fantastic. And they love the mission and they want to support. You got to have high value items as well, because you know it doesn't mean that if someone wants something in return for donating $5,000, that doesn't mean that they're not generous. You know what I mean? It just means that you
Mhm.
gave them something that they wanted and it caught their attention, they paid for it, and you raised money for the organization. Now, could they
Yeah.
make a straight donation in the fund of need? Absolutely. Absolutely they could.
Mhm.
And they might, you know what I mean? But we're big believers in that being those donations being pulled from different, quote unquote budgets.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And so, you'd be throwing the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak, if you didn't have a rockin' silent auction, a cool silent auction that was profitable. And the online portion, I think they're very synonymous now if you're using technology, the online and the silent, and then having a rockin' live auction as well. Having all of these things dialed, and like you said, be very intentional about it with your team and communicating upfront what we need and communicating with the donors that have given in the past. All these things build and crescendo into this beautiful event or events. You're doing a couple of them a year, but the one that we're talking about in April, you're raising at $750,000, so it's working. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Because we're not
Mhm.
shutting the door on opportunities. And I think it's really, really huge. And part of like I said, at the onset, we want to bring the silent auction back and make it cool. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Because it will
I think
work.
too with the online auction ahead of time, particularly for the people who are attending the event, and this is total speculation. I have no like actual anecdote to
Let's
back
talk.
this up, but
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of if one of the attendees buys something in the silent auction, they're maybe not viewing that as part of their event budget, right? They still go
Mhm.
into that event because that money's already spent. I paid
Yeah.
for that on Friday,
Yeah.
and then going into the event on Saturday, oh, yeah, I'm still gonna, go into this thinking I'm gonna spend $5,000 or whatever that is, even though I already spent $850 on something in the
Right.
silent auction.
Right.
Don't know if that's true or not, but maybe.
I'm
I,
open
I
to it.
I'm going
I'm
to tell
open to
you,
it being true. Yeah, because
I think there's a lot of this that we all try to put numbers to it, and I think Trevor mentioned there's, I'm going to call them fundraising consultants, auctioneers, whatever it is out there. They'll come, well, we don't really recommend doing the live auction anymore. We're going to focus on the fund of need. That's all great. Okay, I'm good, because if you haven't done it, fund of need's only been around for about 12, 13 years or so, where people were doing it consistently. It's kind of like saying, well, we're going to do away with the wine pull. Well, is the wine pull, is it tough? Yes, but people enjoy it because it is supposed to be fun. We want
yeah,
to do the fun. People love to go around and look for stuff. Oh my
yeah,
gosh, look, they've got this. Oh,
they're
look, they've got
conditioned to
that.
do it.
They
Yeah,
do, they,
yeah.
people get it. They enjoy that. It's something to do. They're going there to see, to be seen, not just raise their hand and say, here's
To
$10,000 or
compete, I want to
5,000.
compete a little bit.
They
There's
want
that
to, yeah,
fear
that's why
too.
we do the live auction, because it creates excitement, it creates fun, it creates energy.
And
The
giving.
silent auction can too. It gives people an opportunity. Let's just say that you have a table that you've got a sponsor. They spent $5,000. They've got some people that come. Well, if everything's priced out of where they can't touch it, and let's say that it's a younger couple who are coming, you may be able to connect with on a mission with that young couple. They're able to do something, okay, to buy something, to get something. And every time they do it, oh yeah, we went to this event, it was so much fun, we got invited to go with Trevor and his wife Shelby, and it was a lot of fun, and that's where we bought whatever. They're going to remember that. They're going to remember the cause. They're going to remember that, and all of a sudden you become a multi-year, increasing donor that you can work with, that you've identified, that's wouldn't have come and might not have participated at all. Because of everything, there wasn't anything for them except to raise their hand. And they were like, I don't want to raise my hand at the $100 level because everybody will know it.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm just telling you, there's people
All
think
shapes
that
and
way and all
sizes.
kinds of
Yep.
stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. All different wallets, checkbooks, the whole nine, and giving proclivity. And we need to, the thing of it is the beautiful part about having these online options and the super silent and the live and the fun to need and all these great things is that you're just hitting all the different price points. And that's what people, that's what appeals to people, and it works. That's the cool thing. Yeah. It's awesome.
And I mean, putting together a silent auction that will be exciting to bid on. I see there's so many online auctions that I, scroll through in the area that it's like $50 gift card to this restaurant, $100 gift card to this restaurant. Like, let's figure out ways to package those together. Like, we will rarely just put one gift card as its own item. And that's really only if there's like nothing else that we have in that area. And it's just kind of we just want to throw this in, but we're always trying to like date night in Greenwood. Let's do theater tickets and a restaurant and a bar. Let's do family fun time on in Tacoma with a restaurant and the zoo and the whatever. So putting an image in people's mind about and reason why they could get excited to bid on something versus, oh yeah, I go to that restaurant all the time, I guess I could try and get a bargain on $100 gift card and buy it for $70 versus I go to that restaurant all the time. Oh, and that theater I've always wanted to go to, now I'm going to spend more than the value because it's an experience and something exciting. So the intentional packaging and then the well-written package descriptions, I think, go a really, really long way in building that excitement and creating a fun experience for people to bid.
How far in advance do you advertise these items online pre-event? Do you advertise the super silent items online as well?
We have not advertised the super silent items online. We have called them out in like pre-attendee emails along with the live auction stuff. So our silent auction, we do a preview of 1 week in advance. We aim to have 100% of the packages in there, but sometimes there's the stragglers that get in.
Late editions that are awesome.
Right, yeah. So to give folks the opportunity to look, and then in the past we've opened it from Monday to Friday, but we're looking and thinking about if that's the timeline we want to go for again this year or not.
Awesome.
I think it's real funny about you mentioned that. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Trevor.
No, I said I didn't have an opinion. I was just curious. Yeah.
Well, I think, it's interesting to me because everybody, we see lots of online auctions all over, and part of our advancement team, they're working with people all over in different organizations, and so they're monitoring this stuff, okay, because they've got their items, and they put our items in there, and they're seeing what's going on. And one of the things it's always interesting to see where they open it up 7 days, 5 days, 4 days, whatever.
72 hours, whatever. Yeah.
Which I think there's because you're advertising it, you're putting stuff out, you're letting people see, it's keeping that going. But all the bidding happens in like the last 2 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
Still does. Yeah. It's the funniest thing.
It's that eBay syndrome.
Yeah, they go back right to the end. They go, okay, well, I'm going to get on there now.
That's cool.
Start clicking and
you put it out there 5 days in advance, gives folks time to think. I call it, we're in the trips and experience business, so I call it, figuratively packing their bags and looking at scheduling and kids, babysitting, in-law. Because that's what I do. You know what I mean? Literally what we do.
Well, and that's where I was going. I don't look at it and go, okay, well, we opened it 7 days, but we didn't, did it really move the needle? Well, it may have moved the needle more than you think, because even though
it's not,
they had a couple more days of seeing stuff, of seeing what's going on, seeing what's
going
to be.
People are also sharing it too. That's the thing. Yeah. You're getting eyes on your organization and the event itself. It can never be wrong. I personally would not go more than 7 days, because then you're going to get stall. You're going to hit a stall point, and everybody's going to forget about it. And I'm an 8-day guy. Just kidding. I'm kidding.
Well, and so that flurry of bidding that you're talking about is exactly why we end our online auction before our event. So we end the auction on Friday and our event is on Saturday because we want our event attendees to be present and focused at the event and not
Great.
online bidding on their phone. It also is a huge benefit to us to not have to transport all of the silent auction items to the venue. We literally only bring the things that event attendees have won, which is usually like less than a carload. I mean, it's maybe like 15, 20 packages. So that lifts a huge burden off of our shoulders on the woman power, whatever, to transport things back and forth, to be able to close that ahead of time, gives people the ability to be present in the moment at the event, and then gives us the freedom to only move what we need to move.
I love it. I think it's super smart. I like the finality of it. I like that you get dollars in the door before the event even takes place. That's got to, give you a boost. I actually think it's kind of cool that you do paper bidding sheets, all crazy. For the super silent, it's a very limited amount of items. You've adopted technology very early. It's almost kind of like a throwback. It's like, hey, I haven't done a paper bidding sheet in a while. This is kind of fun. And I'm going back and forth with Jimmy, and we're having a good old time, and I'm using my own pen or whatever. You know what I mean?
And when we're only talking about 20 items with 220, 30 people in the room, I mean, it's totally doable. Yeah.
I think it's fun. I think it's kind of fun. Yeah, I love that. I love the uniqueness of it, and it's obviously worked for you. So
it came out of the fact that we could not figure out how to have our online silent auction, or to have the super silent auction only be able to be bid on by people in the room, because our online auction is happening and it's open to everybody, and then the super silent auction is only open to the people in the room. So it came out of necessity, but I think it's working out really great.
Yeah.
good.
Well,
Hey, we've asked you a ton of questions.
and you just said though, you said early on, and I think this is a really key point. A lot of the stuff that in the super silent, people are doing the instant win.
Yeah.
So I mean, it is a bit,
availability,
and at 200% of value, that's pretty strong. I mean, that's pretty amazing, really. So
we've asked you a ton of questions. I'm gonna do a call for questions, Jay, before we get
please.
Everyone, thanks so much for being patient with us this whole time. I haven't asked for any questions, but if you know us, it's always the channels are always open, and we've got Becky here for another few more minutes. So please fire away any questions about your event or what have you, or anything that we can glean from Becky, because she's the one doing it. So it's pretty remarkable. I was really weird, idiosyncratic question that I had, Becky. Have you ever sold a silent auction item twice?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. So things that we get two of, we will never put them both in unless there's a really great opportunity to package them with different things to create different types of experiences, right? But as a single item, I'd never do them because then if you only have two bidders, they're both going to bid the minimum and you're not going to make any money. So yeah, we go back and reach out to the person who didn't win, and depending on how well we know them, we might say, hey, are you willing to come up to the sale price? Or we say, hey, we're going to sell it to you at your last bid.
Good.
We had
don't realize that you can sell multiple items in the silent.
We recently had an organization. I think part of what Trevor says that, so because we're in the trips and experience business, so that's what we provide, and they wanted to put some exciting things in the silent auction.
Yeah.
Actually didn't put it in the live auction, which was kind of surprising to us because just the crowd that they had, but that was okay. But they put it in there. They sold 2 of one item, 3 of another, and I think maybe there was like 3 different items. They sold multiple on every one of them. And all they did was they went to they had, 1, 2, 3 bidders. They just go to them and say, are you still good at your bid? Whatever number it was, because when, on a consignment, you have to make your first bid where you're making money. You don't ever want to start below or at the price. You're making money.
Are you talking about the church in Idaho? Are you talking about the church in Idaho? Yeah.
They went down. They went to him and they said, absolutely. Nobody was offended. Nobody's upset. Everybody's happy because they're raising more money.
It was
so they didn't have to go, hey, will you come up to this bid? They just said, would you honor if we could do this again, would you honor the bid that you currently that you were at? Yeah, I will.
They were floored. They were totally and it was a Tuesday night, and it was completely volunteer driven. It was a church organization in Idaho. and I spent a couple calls with the lady running it. That was head of the committee. And I'm like, you can sell multiple in the silent, and this is how you do it. And she's literally, I'm picking up supper for my wife and my daughter. And I'm talking to Jason, and she's texting me pictures of these,
bitter sheets.
Yeah, PE teacher clipboard bidder sheets. And she's got like an $8,500 bid for a Tuscanyville. And I'm like, oh my God. And there's another name right there. I was like, that's exactly it. So I still take screenshots without the names, and I send them to folks that I talk to. They're doing their first silent auction or volunteers or whatever, or they haven't heard the concept. I'm like, look what happened on a Tuesday night in Idaho. And they were just flabbergasted. It was so cool. Yeah, so cool. Yeah, people still don't realize you can do that. That's the fun thing. What do you think about talking to someone that gives you a rockin' donation? We tell your famous story about the fella that sponsored your restroom, and then he has a yacht, and you probably sold the yacht like at least once or twice in one event.
I think you sold it twice for 10 grand or 20 grand a piece.
Yeah,
it was like a buy-in kind of thing.
Yeah.
How do you?
I told that story yesterday at a coaching event about how a $500 underwriting opportunity for the refreshing station turned into 20 grand.
How cool
that was such a great.
Just from asking, you've done such a great job, Becky, because we watched this over the last couple of years since we've known you, sharpening the pencil, getting better. You're a rockin' fundraiser. So congrats. Also with that, when you're talking to those folks that are making those donations, we're talking about selling multiples in the silent, do you ever have that conversation? Once again, you said, very affectionately, you're like, depending on how well I know the person, you can have a conversation with a donor that's donating a home. It's like, hey, can we have this twice in case we get a bidding frenzy? That's a conversation.
Absolutely.
Too, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes when it's a maybe and they're attending the event, then we kind of say, okay, auctioneer, go check in with this guy during the reception, see if you can get 2 or 3 out of him.
Super smart.
Well, the reason that's really important to know if you beforehand to have that conversation, because I have seen it where somebody's doing that, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, somebody the donor comes back, and it's kind of after the moment has passed, and they go, "Hey, if you could do that again, we'd like to donate it again," because they didn't speak up at the time, they didn't do it. So having that conversation to say, if we were to get is there a certain level of donation? Perfect. Is there something that you'd be willing to do this twice?
Better. Yeah. Even better.
And just ask
him. Actually, last year we had a gentleman, one of our attendees, donate this like mystery pack. It was like there's a signed jersey from a Seattle sports team, but like you don't know what it's going to be, to the silent auction. And so he's like standing there watching it at the end of the silent auction when it's closing, and 2 people were like going back and forth. So I happened to be right there, and he was like, if I buy another one, can you like ship it to them after the event? Yes, obviously, so even though we didn't even have 2, he went out, bought another one after the fact, and we were able to sell it to both of the bidders.
It's pretty remarkable that if you'll just do a little bit of because what happens is, whether it's online, because all this data is available if you're doing an online auction, and it's obviously a data if you're doing it with a piece of paper with taking that. Those people are willing to do it. They bid on it for a reason. They wanted it. And I went back and forth with a guy. It was a movie poster, Butch and Sundance. It was signed by Robert Redford and Paul Newman. Signed by both of them. Paul had already passed away. And we went back and forth, turned the page over because we ran out of stuff, and we kept going back and forth. And finally we flipped for it. And whoever did had to pay them out, got it. And the other guy had to make a donation. So everybody won. But if they could have got another one, we would have done it. I won, by the way.
Yeah. Nice.
That's awesome. Yeah. You love that.
Yeah. So it's right there. It's money that it's right there for you to pick up and that's one more kid you could send to camp.
Yep. Let's talk about another caveat. You get someone where, let's just say you only have one item or one, it's a one of one, and it's a bidding frenzy between a couple people, and it's $5,000, and the underbidder is stuck at $4,500, and you've never met the underbidder before. You've got a $4,500 donor that you've never met before that was willing to write a check for a piece of art or a jersey or an experience for $4,500 at your event. Now, are they leaving with something? Who knows? But you've got you know, it's just like people are not thinking about how cool
Your
this could
point
be.
is so well taken. With the technology that we currently have, you can pull the data on any of this auction
Yes,
software
yes,
for your silent auction, not only the people that won, but also those that participated. And you'll
yeah,
sit there and look, and you've got somebody that bid, you know, several times. They didn't wind up winning anything,
yeah.
but they were bidding, pushing. That's a great opportunity to have a conversation, especially if you don't know that person, that you've
Mhm.
identified somebody that obviously
Do
had
it
some
then.
capacity to give,
Yeah.
that cared enough to show up and push
Hmm.
things. Maybe they didn't get something, but it creates that conversation for a
Yeah.
follow up, and just to have a, you know, to say thank you. Holy cow, Randall, thank you so much for coming. We appreciate everything that you did. I know you didn't get anything bought, but boy, you sure helped everybody else pay a lot more money.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
We're all part of it.
that's
It's fantastic.
a huge opportunity.
Um, well, Becky, you're invited to be a part of our movement because you're actually doing it. The movement is making the silent auction cool again. So I hope that everyone in attendance and everyone watching this is recording would
Mhm.
care to join us. It's very easy to join us. Just make your silent auction cool. And the first prerequisite is that you got to have one. And well, maybe you can let us help maybe a little bit too if you need any feedback or what have you.
Yeah.
Becky, last call for questions, everybody that's in attendance, but so good, Becky. Yeah, so good.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you
you
so
so much
much.
for being here. I've got a winner.
Okay,
I've got a
cool.
winner.
Okay, cool.
Andrew Goldstein is our winner today. So give Andrew a big hand.
Right on, Andrew. Thanks
Andrew,
for
you
joining.
won a
Oh.
trip that you can
Yeah,
use for your next
ticket
fundraiser
in the
to raise
silent.
more money.
Ticket in the silent. It's exciting.
Yeah, put in the silent
Yeah,
auction. That's what
yeah.
it's there for. Yeah.
If you want. Yeah.
And
Awesome.
you know, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Jason at HJ Fundraising, Trevor at hjfundraising.com. We're going to send out a recording of this,
Yep.
and we're going to put this out. We'll send out the recording to everybody
Yep.
because we had a lot of people that attend, you know, that couldn't be here, but they want to see it. We'll also, we're going to CC Becky. So maybe if you have a
Yeah.
direct question for her, you can do that as well. So
You're
I
an
know
expert in the space. So now, yeah, the people
And
No, I
Andrew,
love talking about this stuff.
I
yeah,
know you do.
Andrew,
You're great at it.
we're gonna send you an email. It'll be a specific email with all the information on it. So we'll
Yep,
get that and send that
absolutely.
out to you.
Yep. Hey, Andrew, we're going to send you that. Someone from our marketing team is going to send you that item, and it should be in your inbox within 24 hours, brother. So I appreciate you asking. Appreciate you joining us. Appreciate everyone for joining
Yep.
us. Thank you so much. If you favors, if you could do us a favor, share this with someone in your network. Share this with someone that could get some value out of it. That's maybe thinking about planning their first silent auction or any auction for that matter. And really, really appreciate y'all sharing the information. Becky, we appreciate your time immensely. I know you know that. You've been with us since the beginning. It means the world to us. And we'll be in touch, and we'll talk football here pretty soon.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right.
Thank
We'll
y'all
talk.
so much.
Take care,
We'll talk
everybody.
we'll talk
Hey,
Shohei
happy
Ohtani
Thanksgiving.
too.
We'll not be here next week. We're going to
Yeah.
take the week off for the holidays. So we'll see you in 2 weeks.
I'll be cooking. I won't see you all next Thursday. Have a great,
All right.
great holiday. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Jay.
We'll see you.
Bye,
Thanks
Becky.
again, Beck. See ya.
Thanks. Bye.